Being that everyone in Hollywood knows about the Epstein files and knows about the evil, dark side of Hollywood, I've been suspecting for a long time that this type of information, these types of things, the dark secrets, they would at some point make their way into some movies, maybe as a topic for a movie or an Easter egg inside of movies that are being placed out. Something that's part of producers, actors, actresses' daily lives is hard to keep out of their work. Today we're diving into a video that's exposing some things hidden inside of the files that are disturbing and being found in movies, or a particular movie that's actually out for us to watch today. Welcome to the channel. Thank you for subscribing. Now let's dive into the video.
17 months before the Epstein files were released, a movie came out about a billionaire who owned a private island, and the nightmare his guests endured. At the time, no one questioned it. But once millions of documents were made public, revealing how Epstein actually operated, people started noticing unsettling similarities. The villain, the island, the guests who became victims. And somehow, that isn't even the most disturbing part. The movie featured a toxic plant that could erase memory and override free will. Something that sounds completely fictional until you go through the Epstein files. So we decided to analyze the movie Blink Twice to see what else the producers seemed to know before the files were released.
Blink Twice. Have any of you seen this movie? Let me know in the comment section below, please.
We'll show you the several elements that mirror what allegedly happened at Jeffrey's Island, and we'll explain why these findings are so disturbing. Blink Twice was released in 2024, but it's only now, after the most recent Epstein files drop, that the public is re-examining the film through a whole different lens. With that, allow us to guide you through the dark parallels between this piece of fiction and the horrifyingly real behavior and crimes of Jeffrey Epstein.
I think this is actually interesting, right? Because this is a fictional movie, but a lot of fiction comes from things that are actually factual. And maybe this was someone, a developer or a producer, trying to tell a story or trying to give hints about what was actually going on.
Let's start with the most obvious connection to the disgraced financier, the movie's villain, Slater King. Blink Twice follows the journey of a cocktail waitress, Frida, who, after meeting billionaire CEO Slater King at a fundraising gala, is invited on what, at the surface, appears to be the trip of a lifetime.
We're going to my island for a few days. Do you guys want to come?
Yes, a wealthy, successful businessman with a misleadingly generous spirit in his own private island. Sound familiar?
He was stunningly rich. He had a $20 million house.
Ethics is always a complicated subject, but I can tell you that with the money I gave to help try to eradicate polio in Pakistan and India.
He left Bear Stearns in 1981 and created something called the J. Epstein and Company, and it reportedly only represented billionaires.
This is my swimming pool. No one's allowed to dock here.
And the similarities don't stop there. In Blink Twice, Slater King whisks Frida, her friend Jess, and a group of other women off to his island on his private jet, just like Jeffrey allegedly did with countless young women and girls aboard the infamous Lolita Express.
I mean, we're already starting to see similarities here within the movie and within what actually happened in real life,
Which recent footage shows now sits abandoned in a Georgia scrapyard.
According to the Epstein report, very powerful, well-known people traveled on this aircraft all over the world. The report also states that many of Epstein's victims were also buried on this aircraft.
Also like Jeffrey, Slater is known for hosting wild parties.
Legendary parties of Slater King.
You know, the type of thing guys like billionaire Elon Musk might inquire about. And when Slater showed an interest in Frida's passion for nail art, our team couldn't help noticing the way this eerily mirrored Jeffrey's treatment of young women he would later allegedly victimize.
He's like, oh, you're an artist. What did you bring with you? Because I had my portfolio. He actually studied like every single piece of artwork that was in that portfolio.
After all, just like Jeffrey, we eventually learned that despite the wish fulfillment Slater and his lifestyle might seem to represent,
just seemed like my dreams were all coming true.
This character is no Prince Charming. But the connections between Blink Twice and Jeffrey Epstein go deeper than just Slater King, which brings us to one of the most unsettling parts of the film, the setting.
Did we just jet off to a billionaire's island with a bunch of strangers?
See, it hasn't escaped the internet's notice that the film's setting seemingly reflects the setup on Jeffrey's island.
Now, Is there that blue and white striped building? I don't believe so, but if there is, it is a direct replica of what went on Epstein's Island. We can imagine that it's not going to be inside of this movie, though, but let's see.
I mean, I swear they are literally just mocking us in our faces at this point.
In fact, from the moment the characters pull up to the compound, the similarities are on display. The main building has the same archways and the same stairs at the center as Jeffrey's home on his private island, Little St. James. They even both have a dual color scheme, which in Blink Twice is orange and white.
Do you see right here? I'm going to use my mouse so you can kind of follow along, but you have the archways right here in the orange building, and in the white building, you have also the archways. Now, you may argue that archways are kind of a similar thing in many different types of buildings, but the way that it's laid out here, I could see the similarity.
And on Epstein's Island was blue and white. Then there are the pools, both long, rectangular, and surrounded by palm trees. The paths, sprawling and cobblestoned. The armchairs, upholstered and out of place. The sculptures, some white, some black. Even Frida's rooms seemed to reflect Jeffrey's taste. The film also highlighted one mysterious building at the compound, which our team connected to a temple-like building on Jeffrey's Island.
This is what I was talking about. Now, it's not a blue and white building here, but this is the temple that I was very curious if it was going to be here.
While the architecture might not be identical, it's their separation from the rest of the property and the mysteries they potentially hold inside that tie them together. The blue and white striped building on Epstein's estate, which once had a gold dome on top that was destroyed in a storm, was supposed to be a music pavilion. However, with no windows, the building hardly matched the design submitted on the permit. This begs the question, had the financier constructed the building for another, less innocent purpose?
No windows. Now, okay. If you're doing a recording studio, maybe you want a place that's completely soundproof and windows would not be helpful for that. So not having windows could make sense. It also could make sense that terrible things are going on inside there that you don't want anyone to see.
Conspiracy theorists believed so.
There are rumors circulating that he conducted sacrifices in there. That's where the children were taken for SA or to be.
And if Jeffrey's temple was connected to the building in Blink Twice, maybe internet users were right to suspect the property housed some unpleasant secrets. This brings us to the next potential link between Jeffrey Epstein and the movie, The Flowers. Confused? Let us explain. Frida's time on the island starts out like a dream, connecting with Slater, free luxurious perfume, nightly parties. However, as the film goes on, she starts to get the feeling that hidden behind the parties, the wealth, and the elaborate dinner, something insidious is going on. And when Frida's friend suddenly goes missing and no one else seems to remember her existence...
Where's Jess?
Who is Jess?
This sets the character off on a hunt for the truth, which leads to the mysterious building where she finds a display of red gift bags, all containing the same perfume she and the other young women on the island had been wearing. A groundskeeper then convinces Frida to drink venom, which brings back suppressed memories of the SA she and the other women had been enduring every night. The perfume, it turned out, contained a poison that erased their memories. Snake poison counteracted its effects. As for how the perfume did this, well, that comes down to one ingredient: flowers. Specifically, the men harvested the poison from the Desideria flower that only grows on the island.
That's a stretch. That sounds like something very fictional, that they have this perfume that's going to erase memories. It sounds very fake. But utilizing some type of drugs, maybe some things that were produced or grown on the island to drug victims, definitely sounds like something that's a lot more realistic. And this could just be a short stretch from that.
But while this plant is fictional, there might just have been an IRL counterpart on Epstein's Island. Allow us to introduce you to Angel's Trumpet, a species of plant that's fragrant, trumpet-shaped, and highly toxic.
They essentially turn humans into zombies, wiping their memory and eliminating any of their free will.
So we had to ask, what business did a flower that was known to cause hallucinations, dizziness, and confusion have growing in Jeffrey's plant nursery? Yes, the Epstein files exposed a message from Jeffrey that read, "Ask Chris about my trumpet plants at nursery."
Wow. Okay, so they're not only just randomly growing on the island, these are something that are purposefully being grown in the nursery and in the document files as well. Interesting.
The email was sent in 2014 to Anne Rodriguez, the general manager of Little St. James and potentially involved in Jeffrey's scheme to girls to the island. As one email suggested, Anne was visiting schools for troubled girls. Anne: hey boss man, I found 5. These schools. Jeffrey: check them out with comments, etc. Anne: will do. Jeffrey had also referenced trumpet flowers in an email to Anne from 2013, alongside other landscaping to-dos. Naturally, social media was suspicious.
When you are gardening these flowers, you have to be so careful that you do not touch them and ingest them, because again, they are so highly toxic, they will kill you. What do you think he was doing with those flowers?
And it wasn't long before users were connecting the dots between Angel's trumpet and the fictional plant from the movie. We knew Blink Twice was about that island, but I thought the whole plant toxin was thrown in there as creative license. This is actually crazy. The files also exposed a message from 2015 where an unknown sender forwarded Jeffrey an email from fashion photographer Antoine Vergla linking a Daily Mail article on a powerful substance growing in the forests of Colombia that eliminates free will. The article is referring to scopolamine, also known as devil's breath, which is a toxic alkaloid that can be found in some trumpet flowers. It's known for leaving people disoriented and lowering inhibitions. In large enough doses, it's lethal. The article quoted Vice's Ryan Duffy, who spoke to a dealer in Colombia who described the substance as colorless, odorless, and powerful enough that simply blowing it in someone's face as they pass you on the street was enough for it to take effect. You wait a minute when you see it kick in, then you know that you own that person. You can guide them wherever you want. It's like they're a child, the dealer explained.
That's actually super crazy. You could use this substance, blow it in someone's face in the street, kicks in, and then they're yours? Wow.
Ryan also explained the horror stories he heard surrounding the substance.
Stuff like waking up in a bathtub with an organ cut out and a sign saying you have 5 hours to get to the hospital. We've, of course, also heard that it's used as a date. We heard one particularly chilling story where a guy was taken back to his apartment, woke up the next morning in the empty apartment, completely confused as to what happened, went down and said to his doorman, why is my apartment empty? What happened? And the doorman said, well, you brought it out with 2 of your friends last night, all your stuff. You loaded it into a van. And the guy was like, why in the hell would you let me do that? And he was like, because you told me to. So that's kind of the stuff we're dealing with here.
This might sound like memory erasure, but it's closer to delirium. But that's not to say Jeffrey wasn't interested in deleting the past. This brings us to the next possible connection between Blink Twice and Jeffrey Epstein: memory erasure. See, the men in Blink Twice, just like Jeffrey and his pals, have no issue taking incriminating photos.
Everybody say, making memories! Making memories!
In the film, this includes a photo of Frida with long hair, which proves she was on the island the previous year but had no memory of it.
Oh, that's very interesting. Or it could also mean that she had been there for an extended period of time as well. Ariana Grande's memory was erased and she admitted it. Right, we did hear this stuff from Ariana Grande.
Social media users have connected this twist to celebrities they believe were mistreated by elites and had their memories scrubbed.
They did the Brighter Days memory erasure treatment to me, so I'm having trouble remembering the details. They're foggy.
Of course, as some users pointed out, Ariana was referencing a fictional procedure from Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, one of the singer's favorite films and an inspiration for the We Can't Be Friends, Wait for Your Love music video. But that doesn't mean this plot twist was unconnected to Epstein. The files are full of articles on the impacts of trauma on memories, such as both 2005 and 2018 research papers say that most people with documented CSA still remembered it many years later, and their memories tended to be more accurate when the abuse remained a major traumatic event for them. A 2020 paper that says trauma, especially repeated childhood trauma within families, is very common in forensic cases, can deeply affect a person's emotions, identity, relationships, and body. Clearly, there was an interest in if childhood trauma could be accurately recalled in later stages in life.
Now, I want to go back to Ariana Grande for a second, and you have to sometimes wonder. We see actors and actresses often make goofy statements referencing something from another movie. We saw it happen with Jaden Smith, Will Smith's son, referencing in an interview everything from the Twilight movie. There has to be some truth in the things that they're saying. It's like They want to tell everyone what they're actually feeling, but they feel as if they can't actually say it.
And there's something else related to this. In 2014, former MIT professor Joy Ito, who resigned from the university in 2019 after revelations surfaced that Joy and other staff had secretly been accepting donations from the financier, emailed Jeffrey Epstein the following: "You told me about the technology that you tried where they erase your short-term memory. Is this work published? Which lab is it?" Jeffrey replied, "Many transmagnetic stimulation is the device. Much work done on using it for trauma, amnesia, etc." Joy emailed back, "I'm on a New York Times audit committee call. Thanks for this. Now I'll have something fun to Google." It's unclear how Jeffrey had access to transcranial magnetic stimulation, nor is it clear how the technology, often used to treat depression, was being used to erase memories. What is clear is how a device that could erase short-term memory would benefit someone like Jeffrey, whether it was repressing victims' memories for good or buying himself enough time that, legally speaking, he could escape consequence-free.
Well, unfortunately, there's this horrible law called statute of limitations.
If you need an example, just look at this court document from a Jane Doe who claims she suffered from traumatic amnesia or a related syndrome following an alleged SA from Jeffrey that caused her to suppress or lose her memory for several years.
Wow.
How many potential victims were there if Jeffrey had technology that could delete his crimes from memory? After all, the symbolism in Blink Twice was enough to make some users believe they weren't watching a thriller, but a documentary.
I was just going to say, that woman on the screen wrote, you mean the documentary Blink Twice. So it's no secret that people do believe that this is just a discussion, a movie about Jeffrey Epstein and Epstein's Island.
Some users even pointed out that the trigger warning at the beginning of the film said the story was fictionalized. As one TikTok user put it, wording is very important. There is a reason they say fictionalized and not fiction. And with a number of these Epstein files only being released in 2026 and a number of the photos of Little St. James only recently coming to light,
we are now getting never-before-seen photos and videos of the Caribbean island belonging to convicted offender Jeffrey Epstein.
We had to ask, was the plot of Blink Twice a coincidence or a call-out? To answer that question, we had to look into who wanted this film made. And that brought us to the director and co-writer of Blink Twice, Zoe Kravitz. Zoe began writing the script for the film in 2017, 2 years before Jeffrey Epstein's arrest. And for the actor, this was more than her directorial debut. It was a passion project.
It was really this film that made me want to direct. It was really because I saw something so clearly in my mind. It was so personal.
Yes, according to everyone involved, Zoe had a clear vision for the film.
That was something personal. I wonder if she was herself a victim of Epstein.
When we were starting to think about where we were going to shoot this, Zoe had a really specific idea of what Slater's compound should look like.
And maybe that's because the story wasn't entirely fiction.
Wow.
See, according to Zoe, Blink Twice was inspired by
Both in my own life, things I'd observed, things that have happened to friends of mine.
As for how Zoe would have witnessed anything to do with Jeffrey Epstein, some internet users theorized this had to do with her rock star father, Lenny Kravitz.
She actually knew exactly what was happening because her father, Lenny Kravitz, actually knew Peter Nygaard and attended his island, the Canadian Epstein.
Yes, the disgraced Canadian fashion mogul had his own private estate in the Bahamas, where he allegedly young women and girls. And while the files suggest Jeffrey had no relationships with Peter Nygaard, the two were connected through their alleged shared association with Prince Andrew, as files show the FBI wanted to interview the royal about his relationship with Peter. Along with Peter Nygaard, social media users were also quick to link Lenny Kravitz with other alleged Epstein associates, such as Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, and Naomi Campbell. Some believe this was evidence Lenny was also corrupt. Others theorized it was more likely that he was helping his daughter expose these people by providing inside information.
Now, have you guys seen Lenny Kravitz lately? First of all, I love his music, but he just looks amazing for his age. I'm not even 100% sure how old he was. We'll pop that up on the screen for you in a moment, his actual age, but he looks incredible for his age. I just wanted to put that out there.
Or maybe Zoe's film was inspired by another parent, her mother, Lisa Bonet. See, social media users pointed out that Lisa Bonet starred in The Cosby Show alongside serial Bill Cosby. This led some to theorize Blink Twice was about Zoe's mother's experience in show business. We also dug up an interview where Zoe claimed there was cannibalism in an earlier version of the script, a statement that reminded us of the conspiracies that Jeffrey and his friends were using coded language to discuss this very subject.
Now, it was in the early version of the script and then obviously removed from the script. Hearing what the producer here had to say, it is very clear that she has had Epstein-related experience, whether herself, her mother, her father being involved, or just people that she knows and overseeing what happens in the industry. This makes this instantly a must-see movie if you haven't seen it.
So do you think the human sacrifice is before or after dinner?
Oh, wow.
Yet, Zoe has claimed this film isn't meant to be taken literally and wasn't based on Jeffrey Epstein. In a 2024 interview with IndieWire, she stated, "I set this on an island because I wanted to isolate the characters and have them deal with this situation. I was thinking about, again, the Garden of Eden and Lord of the Flies, and I'm not just also talking about powerful men at that level. It could be your husband. It could be the man down the street that's following you home. It could be your boss. It could be a family member. People connect that to specific things, but that's not the way it was thought about, if that makes sense."
Wow.
But if Zoe did know more than she let on about Jeffrey Epstein, were there elements from the film that still hadn't been exposed IRL? From the beginning, Blink Twice has a clear predator-prey dynamic. Even when they're playing together, the men seem to hunt the young women, not unlike this recently released footage of Jeffrey Epstein chasing two giggling women, or potentially girls, around his kitchen. But our team was struck by one thing. In the film, spoiler alert, only 2 of the women survive. Frida, the lead character, is one of the survivors, and in a dark twist, she uses the memory-wiping perfume on Slater to marry him, take over his company, and keep him in a permanent state of amnesia. Naturally, theories have developed over who Frida could represent IRL, with some speculating she was based on Oprah Winfrey, Naomi Campbell, or even Beyonce.
She's one of the girls she woke up just like Frida did and is taking control of the ship. Beyonce removes herself from the public eye because she couldn't continue sharing her voice like that and not expose that she knows what she knows, not show the chinks in her armor, not start acting crazy, not start exposing that she is awake. Beyonce is Frida from Blink Twice.
But our team was more concerned about the number of lives that were taken on the island. The public knows the young women and girls who traveled to Little St. James faced unimaginable horrors, but they never lost their lives, right? Well, that depends on whether Blink Twice hinted at something that authorities still haven't uncovered, where the bodies are buried. It was clear that Epstein survivors had feared for their safety. In February, Juliette Bryant opened up to Sky News Australia about flying to Jeffrey's Island when she was just a first-year university student. She claimed she realized the danger she was in when the financier openly SA'd her on the jet while the other women aboard laughed.
I suddenly realized, oh my God, my family aren't going to see me again. These people might kill me. I just really thought that I was going to die.
And once Jeffrey's victims arrived on the island, they were trapped in this nightmare.
The girls and the young women who went on the island were basic prisoners. You couldn't leave.
Yes, just like in Blink Twice, the women eventually realized they weren't guests on the island, but prisoners. And according to the victims, everyone who visited the island knew exactly what was happening. Just listen to this victim statement released in the files about Google co-founder Sergey Brin and his fiancée at the time, 23andMe co-founder Anne Wojcicki. They observed that we did not speak and that we remained mute. They witnessed the trauma on our faces and in our eyes. Sergey and Anne witnessed our souls and bodies riddled with fear. They said nothing. They did nothing. They just continued to laugh and joke around us as if we were nothing, like I didn't even exist. And if nobody was going to save them, like the young women in Blink Twice, they would try to save themselves. In one file, an alleged victim claimed, "One day I was in severe distress and afraid. I tried to escape Epstein and the others by trying to swim off St. Little James. Epstein and Maxwell, after spending the day being SA'd, bullied and belittled, brought me back as if nothing happened." Similarly, a character in Blink Twice tried to swim away before getting dragged out of the water by Slater. But if this film was based on Jeffrey, did that mean the financier was also capable of murder? Currently, Jeffrey's Zorro Ranch is being searched for proof of just that.
The question is Zorro Ranch really being searched? How long does it take to excavate these types of properties? It seems like it's taking an eternity. Maybe they've found things and are covering them up. Maybe nothing was found. Maybe the search hasn't even begun.
Jeffrey's New Mexico property might not be situated on a private island, but that doesn't mean it's not connected to Blink Twice. In fact, the ranch and the film's compound are so disturbingly similar that some social media users have mistakenly used images of the New Mexico property instead of Little St. James when comparing Blink Twice to Epstein's Island. But it's not just architectural choices that connect the ranch to the film. The recent release of the Epstein files revealed an email that a man named Eddie Aragon forwarded to the FBI in 2019. The local radio host had been discussing Zorro Ranch on his show when he received a disturbing, anonymous message that read, "Did you know somewhere in the hills outside the Zorro, 2 foreign girls were buried on orders of Jeffrey and Madam G? Both died by during rough, deviant SA. The anonymous source asked for 1 Bitcoin in exchange for information and offers 7 videos of SA as proof." According to former New Mexico Attorney General Hector Balderas, this tip and others were never shared with him.
It appears that systems of justice were manipulated to further give Epstein an even greater advantage that he had over these young victims.
And this wasn't the only allegation that dark secrets were buried on the property. On February 16th, Democratic representatives Andrea Romero and Mariana Anaya were told by a member of the public whose identity has been redacted that they broke into Jeffrey's ranch in 2020 and discovered multiple grave-like plots. "I realize this might be illegal," the person wrote, "but men like that don't deserve the protection of the law." Al Jazeera recently released the photos of these alleged grave sites through a public records request with the New Mexico Department of Justice. Despite these acquisitions and a number of Jeffrey's alleged crimes taking place at Zorro Ranch, the property was never searched. That is, until recently. Yes, the Epstein files drop and the renewed public scrutiny that followed has prompted New Mexico's law enforcement to conduct the first ever search of the property.
Are they potentially looking for bodies there?
You know, I think at this point, anything is in the realm of possibility.
However, given that it's been over 6 years since Jeffrey's arrest and the property is under new ownership, it's unclear what evidence, if any, will be left.
Under new ownership, who would want to own that property knowing now the things that have gone on it? Maybe, curious about who that new owner is, someone that's trying to continue to cover up what happened.
That means in the unending search for answers, Blink Twice and everything it could allude to remains a massive question mark. For now, we're left to wonder, was Zoe Kravitz privy to information the rest of the public wasn't?
There is a clear connection, in my opinion, between Blink Twice and the Epstein files. It may actually be a documentary of things that went on with the Epstein files with a fictionalized twist. Because remember, they did say that this movie wasn't fiction, it was fictionalized, which to me more sounds like the truth with a fictional twist. What other movies do you know of that you think can be directly related to evil Hollywood or to the Epstein files? Let me know in the comments section below. And to dive deeper into who some of these evil people are within the Epstein files, check out this video because I have 15 names you may have never heard.